Taking on the political establishment. Let's get dialed in. Folks, today we have a special guest and a conversation you don't want to miss. He's someone who's been at the forefront of the fight for true conservative values in Texas, values that are under attack every single day. He doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk, standing up for the principles that make Texas great, even when it's not easy, even when it's not popular. I'm talking about Matt Rinaldi. Now, for those of you who don't know, Matt Rinaldi isn't your typical politician. He's a former Texas state representative and now former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. But more than that, he's a fighter. He's someone who's willing to take on the establishment, to call out the hypocrisy and the double standards, and to do it with a sharp intellect, unwavering conviction, and even some humor. Matt has been leading the charge on the most critical issues facing Texas today. He's been there on the front lines, making sure that the voices of hardworking Texans are heard loud and clear. But what really separates Matt is his willingness to challenge the status quo. He's not interested in going along to get along. He's interested in getting results, in making real changes that actually benefit the people. And that's why the establishment is so afraid of him. They know he's effective, they know he's principled, and they know he will not back down. So today, we're going to dig into the movement that changed the entire political landscape of the Texas Republican Party this past year, a battle for change and reform that was led by Matt Rinaldi. This is a conversation you won't hear anywhere else because, frankly, the mainstream media is too scared to have it. But we're not. This is the show that tells it like it is. And today, we've got Matt Rinaldi to help us do just that. Mr. Chairman, welcome to Texas Talkin'. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I was at the state convention in May where I served as a congressional district caucus chairman. And one of the key moments for me over the course of those few days was actually something you said. You said when you put an R after your name, it's supposed to mean something. So what does it mean to be a Republican?
What does it mean to be a Republican? It means that we believe in the principles of the founding. We believe that we have the rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and they're endowed by our creator, not by any government. Now, obviously, we believe in the United States Constitution and constitutional principles, not the Constitution as it's currently interpreted by a bunch of judges, but the Constitution as it was written as the best way to enshrine those ideals into a system of government. And our party is supposed to stand for that. Now, our party recently has had to resist the left and make that one of its primary functions as well, since the Democratic Party in the last 20 years has been taken over by a bunch of Marxists. But generally, those are the Republican Party principles. And if we don't have a party that stands for those principles and fights for it, then what are we doing? We could be doing other things with our time.
And it's incumbent upon us to hold them accountable to those principles.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that political parties 100 years ago used to mean something more than they did now. And for some reason, I think we zombie walked into this future where people just accepted that parties would be less important. And they were replaced by something. I mean, because we still have two political parties, who determines what they stand for? Well, increasingly, it was the candidates or the office holders. And the office holders weren't they're directly accountable to people in terms of being elected. But as a political party with open primaries, they're less and less accountable to their party organization, their party faithful, the people who put their heart and soul into it, actually thinking about these policy issues on a daily basis and working and fighting for those issues. So what we got was politicians determining what parties stand for. And how do politicians often, unfortunately, determine what they stand for? It's what their donors stand for. And as you see, not coincidentally, the government's been taken over by a bunch of moneyed interests that have become more powerful in the last 50 years than ever before. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened at the same time that political parties were becoming less powerful.
Well, something very important happened this past year in the Republican primary here in Texas, and you led historic sweeping change with a record 15 establishment Republicans losing their seats. These were people who had, of course, totally abandoned the base. To what do you attribute that success?
It's hard to say because we were trying to do it time after time again. I think we've coordinated our election efforts more than ever before. And I think that happened. It was almost the perfect storm, right? There were three things. It was we were coordinating our efforts better than ever before as the grassroots. We had at the same time, we had the Republican Party in grassroots hands, right? With a grassroots chair that wasn't just following what the incumbents wanted to do. At the same time, you had President Trump getting involved in these state races, which had such an impact because of Dade Phelan and what he was doing in the House. And at the same time, you had the school choice issue and Greg Abbott getting involved. So I think with the party, Trump, Greg Abbott, you had like the perfect storm going on at one time with an issue that Republican primary voters could, with a couple issues that Republican primary voters could wrap their heads around during election time. And I want to point one thing that the party did that we never did before that I think was huge.
Sure.
Okay, so usually you would get to election time and the 5% of people who are actually following things would know, okay, Joe Strauss, terrible guy doing a bad job, more Democrat than Republican. That would have happened this time too, but the party did something it's never done before. We started spending money during the session. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars during the session, educating Republican voters across the state, not just like on our email lists. We did direct mail. I was doing TV ads in Dade Phelan's district in January and February.
I saw that.
Telling his voters what he was doing. So when it came time for election time rolled around, these voters weren't hearing about it for the first time. You know, you just get hit with so much noise as a voter at the last minute. I think a lot of them tune out. But when you're actually communicating to them when it's happening, I think that's huge. And when it comes from a branded organization of the Republican Party, I think it has a huge effect. So I think that was a lot to do with it too.
So on the issue of money, your haters, and you probably have even more of them than I do, bemoan you for not fundraising. Now, Matt, my suspicion is that many donors are giving directly to candidates instead of to the party because we still have too many Dade Phelans running around masquerading as Republicans. Why is fundraising such a challenge in the Texas GOP, or is that criticism unfair?
No, I think the criticism is unfair. It's a bit of a challenge compared to a state like Florida, because Florida has contribution limits for statewide offices. So the party acts as sort of a super PAC for those candidates. We don't need to do that here. But as far as our fundraising goes, when I was chair compared to previous administrations, fundraising was remarkably consistent, right? It's remarkably consistent. We're having one of the best victory years ever in terms of fundraising, and we were in a great financial position. And it was interesting because when I was running and I took over for Alan West, everybody was saying, "Oh, the party's in a horrible financial position. It's horrible. It's horrible." Thing. And I took over, and there was $1 million in the bank.
Wow.
Like, where's this all? I mean, what people were saying did not comport with the bank statements I'm looking at. The same thing happened, when I left. It's just people don't understand finances, and the party is incredibly complicated because you have like 3 separate accounts that are taking in money and spending a bunch of money. So you could use these points in time when it's low, compare them to a point in time that's high, and make things look really bad with deceptive information. So
it's probably
the party's
the same
doing
people.
well.
It's probably the same people who were voicing criticism when you took over for Alan West who are wailing about it now.
Yeah, I said that when I said that in the debates when I was running. I was like, when people were talking about Alan and finances, like, if you don't like the chair, the finances are horrible. If you like the chair, they're amazing. And that seems to be the case every time.
So, Matt, what do you see as the most pressing issue facing the Republican Party of Texas this next legislative session?
You know, I got to say, I mean, it's going to be the speaker and the speaker's race because everything really hinges on that, right? We have a governor that's being bolder than he's ever been before.
Yes.
Um, and even if I wish he could be even bolder than he is now sometimes, but
you and I both.
definitely, definitely bolder than he's ever been before. You have a lieutenant governor that's being bold and is ready to go to war to fight for our country. And the only outlier is the House, right? And we also happen to be the only legislative body in the entire United States where Republicans are voluntarily ceding power to Democrats
It's
who
insane.
are calling them racists and want them in jail. I have no idea how this makes any sense to anybody. It's funny because I talked to, we were just at dinner with a congressman from another state, not like, raging right-wing congressman, just a average, mainstream Republican from another state. We tell him about yeah, we have Democrat chairman.
He probably looked at you in astonishment, the face that you just made.
Everybody does.
Yes.
Everybody does. I mean, probably somebody who thinks John Cornyn is going to be the greatest Senate Majority Leader candidate ever is still would look at you and go, "What?
Yeah.
You do that? Why?" It's they're good with Mitch McConnell, but that they can't figure that out, and it's bad. People don't realize how bad it is.
I think more and more people realize it now. And I think that there are probably more people in our party who are fed up with that practice than perhaps ever before. I know that played a significant role in David Covey getting as close as he did to defeating Dave Phelan in the primary. But you brought up John Cornyn. Matt, let's make some news. What does your political future look like? And would you consider challenging John Cornyn?
I don't know what my political future looks like right now. To be honest, I left to spend some time with my family. I'm having a great time doing that right now. I'm pretty sure I will be doing something again, but it's not going to be determined by my ambition. It's going to be determined by where I can do good. And I've always said that. So
you're not ruling it out. You're not ruling it out.
Oh, yeah, not ruling it out at all.
Okay.
If I can make a difference and if I can help the movement, that will definitely be something I will consider doing. But for now, I'm having fun playing hockey with my kid.
Excellent. Outstanding. Well, Matt, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes coming on and talking to us tonight. And as I always tell my viewers, you may not take an interest in politics, but politics absolutely takes an interest in you with or without your permission. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.